You know, Bob is very smart. He's a hard worker. He's very dedicated. He's a forward thinker. He's a big thinker. And he's a collaborator. And he knows how to bring people from diverse backgrounds together for a common cause for good.
I would say Bob was a scrapper and worked hard and got a lot of business, in our community and built his organization around at that time, the success in St. Louis.
Bob has an abundance of energy, and he is always full throttle. And I think he drives a culture where if you are a competitive, driven person, you want to play at the same level he's playing, and it's a very high bar. Bob isn't thinking about 5 years into the future. Bob's thinking 20 years into the future.
Clayco is not the first startup I had. So it was, as a teenager, I was sealing driveways, and I had a snowplow business, and I had a car wash in my driveway before I could drive. And I went door to door in my neighborhood and, found handyman jobs to paint people's garage doors and stuff. My dad was an entrepreneur. My dad had a painting business that he started in the early 60s that became a very successful business. He was not very present, and I didn't have a great relationship with my dad, but the takeaways were enormous in terms of his grit and his determination to take this little painting company that he started and create a giant, really one of the largest painting contracting businesses in the country. And I had always been really interested in architecture and engineering and building. My dad would drive me out to construction jobs, and while I wasn't excited about the painting, I was really excited about the rest of everything that was going on.
If you look at Bob's background, he went to Parkway Central High School and grew up in St. Louis, kept his roots here and raised his family here and continues to be an integral part of this community. Bob is someone that his mantra in life is, what can he do to help others? He's helped many people. He continues to help many people. St. Louis is very lucky to have Bob Clark.
One example that I got to be a part of in that was back in 2010. We woke up in the morning to hear about the devastating earthquake in Haiti. And my wife, Lisa, had already been texting with a doctor friend that morning who was trying to figure out if there was a way that she could help. And it turns out I was going to have breakfast with Bob that morning. And I told him about Lisa's conversation with this doctor. And we sat for hours and discussed what could be done and hatched a plan. 2 days later, a Clayco plane lifted off from Lambert Field. It was full of doctors from St. Louis, Clayco construction workers, and medical supplies. It was the first, if not one of the first, humanitarian planes that actually arrived on the ground within 2 days of the earthquake happening.
Delmar Devine is a mixed-use project built here in what I call Hollywood and Vine in St. Louis. That was the original St. Luke's Hospital, built first in 1904, but basically closed in 2010 and was empty until we decided to buy it in 2015. And nobody had come up with a plan for it or an idea for it, but having been at Cortex many times and seeing how successful that was, I thought, why don't we create a Cortex for nonprofits? We wanted to create really nice living city living, so we brought economic development to the neighborhood. The idea was really to change the image of Delmar from the divide to something really wonderful to live in. This really would not have happened without Clayco and the kind of company that Bob created. Once he says yes to something, it's going to be the best that it can possibly be. I think I knew that, but I didn't know how detailed everybody would be.
They just opened up the Clark Family Library on Lindbergh. I mean, that says it all about his feeling towards St. Louis, the future of St. Louis. And if you haven't been there, you should go see the place because it's second to none. I mean, that's a library that every community in the country is going to come and look at and say, how can we have this? And the question will be, how do you have a Bob Clark to make it happen?
When I think about Bob's generosity, it's really more like an iceberg. Like you see the tip here in St. Louis with the Ellen Clark Sculpture Garden, or the beautiful Maya Lin installation at the BJC campus, or the amazing Clark Family Library that's just been unveiled. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's this unseen mass of kindness underneath all of that.
I think St. Louis keeps Bob engaged like it would anybody. He has children and grandchildren here that are a wonderful family. But I also think that he believes that St. Louis has a lot more potential than what we realize every day. And I as somebody who moved to St. Louis, I agree with him. I mean, he and I agree 199% about that. We might not go about it the same way, but we definitely agree that St. Louis has not realized its full potential.
We are committed to doing the right thing, and we're committed to building and doing business in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's because Bob wants it that way. It's not because we have to do it that way.
I think he would tell you that his success is not about him. It's about the people that he's been able to attract. And I kind of think about him as the sun, and he keeps a lot of really good people in orbit around him, and those people are very loyal, and that is the secret to his success.
I don't really do what I do for recognition, but I think the recognition is good for me to continue building a base of good work in the community.
Bob deserves this award because when you look at Arch Grants and the amazing history that it has had since it was created in St. Louis, and how it has tried to change the landscape and people's impression of St. Louis when it comes to startup businesses, capital, and support, I think Bob has not only grown an amazing company himself, but he has supported, mentored, and nurtured so many other companies here in St. Louis that he's the perfect person for this award, and I can't think of anyone that deserves it more than him.